Hello, I'm Matt Bergman, and you are listening to the Punk Rock Libertarians podcast, episode 269. I'm here tonight with Jared Schneiderman,
What up, guys?
Philip Dassing,
What's up, pony soldiers?
Alexis Schlegel,
Hello, COVID comrades.
and yeah, we're very excited. We got on a hero of ours, Dave Smith. Comedian Dave Smith is on the program tonight.
Dave Smith.
Man, you guys need to get better heroes.
Touche.
Oh, man. Oh, man. So, yeah, Dave, yeah, we're just like totally excited about you coming on here tonight. We also put out in our group, we asked a lot of people like, hey, what do you want us to ask Dave Smith? You know? And then, of course, we have our own questions as well. So there's some things on my mind. Like, what are you doing right now? Like coronavirus during the quarantine? Are you like drinking more?
I'm just I'm making out with strangers. I just want to get the antibodies up, so I'm just stopping people on the street, licking them down.
Get that herd
I'm going
immunity
the opposite. Yeah, I'm running in the opposite direction.
Nice.
No, I'm fucking laying low. I'm hanging out with my family a bunch and kind of isolating a little bit, but it's kind of been a good excuse to just have a lot of family time.
Yeah, I think we're all probably experiencing a lot more family time right now. I heard earlier that apparently like a lot of car insurance companies are like dropping people's rates by like 25% because nobody's driving. Did anybody else hear about that?
No, it makes
Yeah,
sense.
I got a letter. I have USAA. I got a letter. I don't know. They're like reducing my premium like 25% the next 2-3 months or something. So
Nice.
or the rate, whatever. But yeah,
Well, it really has been interesting though, in this whole thing to see like, the beautiful ways that the market actually does work, even in crazy situations like this. And I hadn't heard about that, but that's just kind of one more like little interesting thing that I never would have thought of or predicted. But that's really cool. And like there's a lot of things like that going on where little companies are finding these kind of innovative ways to stay alive or to help people out in these times. And I do enjoy hearing about that.
Yeah, perhaps some of these like innovations that are being made right now will stay in place after, coronavirus. So it could be a blessing in some ways.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of us are trying to find some silver lining to this this whole craziness. So that would be nice.
yeah.
Right.
Like, could I still get beer delivered or like cocktails delivered from bars? Or is that going to continue? Are they gonna? Is Baltimore City Police going to stop arresting like for marijuana or prostitution? That's
Dude, I always love the way the cops like inform the public that they're going to stop busting people for small crimes. Like they're always really broken up. They're like, guys, this thing is bad. We're not going to be able to club you over the head for pot anymore. I'm sorry.
Bummer.
We'll get back to it as soon as we can. And you're like, you guys we could just do this forever. That would be fine.
Yeah, I think I read earlier that like 28 people have been arrested in Maryland so far for violating the quarantine order.
Wow.
Yeah.
What counties do you recall? What counties those were in?
No, I just saw like 28 people, and I think like the cops were called like over 1,000 times. It sounds like
Jesus.
it's a lot of Karens like reporting their neighbors.
Yeah, we're on Karen overload now.
Yeah.
Karen's
Yeah,
got
the Karens might be creepier than the state. I really
Oh, it is.
that's one of the things I've been thinking about a lot through this whole thing. It's like, wow, that's the fucking real problem is the Karens. It's not even the state, because as I'm sure all of you guys have thought about and spoken about before, it's like the state really is completely outnumbered.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not for the Karens, we could just like break free of these shackles tomorrow. But there's way too many people who are just thrilled with all of this. Like there's some weird psychological thing. Like they get into the authoritarianism and they're like, hey, how can I get on board with that shit? How can I help?
yeah.
Well, I
My
mean,
theory
help
is
the
it's
cause.
kind of like my theory is definitely like this is the type of people who would like instinctively go towards the state and run for local office. These authoritarians, and this is just kind of their way of subverting that process, and they can just do it from their couch and snitch on people, get people in trouble, and to
Yeah,
get their fix that way.
right. Well, most of them don't even fucking have the talent to run for local office or even whatever talent that takes. Like they're even below that. You know what I mean? So, but they wish they could. Like that's kind of their fantasy. But what they will do in reality is snitch out Anne Frank in their attic or whatever.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well,
like
I was
they're
gonna
those
say,
people.
I was gonna say, at the risk of sounding hyperbolic, I mean, it was the citizens that were calling the Gestapo, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there wasn't enough of them to like patrol every single house and check every single house every day. It was their neighbors reporting them.
Whether it's fucking Nazi Germany or the Soviet Union, it's with the shit that's going on in North Korea today. It's one of the like the things that they like instill in people is to rat out anybody who's disobedient to the state, because the state can never actually, like, totalitarianism just from the state is something that can never be achieved. They have to like brain fuck people into thinking that they want to be on this side too, and that's the only way they ever actually lock down a society. And you see it here, right? Like they could never catch every single person who violates a shelter in place law unless you had a society full of Karens.
Yep. Karens were responsible for the Holocaust. You heard it here first. So did you I heard you normally live in New York City, right?
Yes.
And so you're now like out in New Jersey somewhere, right?
Yeah, that's right. I came out. I actually came somewhat unrelated. My wife's grandfather was ill, and so we came out here. But it just happened to be like right when everything was going down because she wanted to be with her mother. And then all the craziness started happening in New York. And so I was like, you know what? Let's just like hang here for a week and see how crazy this thing gets.
Yeah.
And that was like almost 4 weeks ago.
Wow, that was fortuitous.
Yeah, it kind of worked out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've noticed that now the content you're putting out isn't coming from your studio. You're just like somewhere else. I guess where you are.
Yeah, I'm at my in-laws. But it's once things started getting a little bit sketchy, I got a young daughter and a wife to take care of, and things in New York City seemed a little bit sketchy. And honestly, it wasn't really like the virus itself that I was concerned with. I was concerned with supermarket shelves getting bare, the natives getting restless, cops cracking down, things like that. So I was like, you know what?
Karens.
Yes, exactly. So I was like, I want to be in a house. I want to stock this. I spent like a few $1,000s on groceries. I got food like out the ass. I got the means to defend that food.
You got all the snacks.
Yes, exactly. And
don't forget the snacks.
I felt a little more comfortable in that situation.
Dude, congrats, by the way. Like, I caught your appearance on Jimmy Dore's podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, that was like so awesome. And then when you had him on your show, that was amazing as well. I feel like you did a really good job reaching out to the left.
Yeah, despite all the left libertarians who think I'm a Nazi sympathizer, I do a better job than them of reaching out to the left-wing audiences. Which, whatever, that's kind of petty. But I think particularly right now, it's a really good idea for us to talk to as many people as possible. I know there's too many times, and I'm sure I'm guilty of this too, but the liberty movement it's big enough that a lot of people like us can kind of exist in it and find our little niche in it. But if we're only talking to a very small group, we're not going to, have any real impact. And right now, like, shit is not a joke. We're looking at a threat of real deal fascism, like on a different level than we've been used to. And if there's some like principled guy on the left, like Jimmy Dore, who's anti-war, anti-police brutality, anti-corporate bailouts, I think that's a good starting point to be like, hey, let's focus on what we agree on.
Yeah, most definitely. And I guess perhaps the reason why you're so good at reaching out to the left is, you're from New York City, right? So, you're probably used to being surrounded by lefties.
Yeah, I'm from New York. I'm a fucking, I'm a Jew, as much as I try to run from it.
So is Jared.
I feel you, dude.
Jared's my Jew card.
Yeah, but I was raised by a single mother. I was raised in a pretty atheist, agnostic household. I was so it's like I culturally can speak their language. I'm of the left. I understand the mindset of right wing equals bad, cold-hearted person. And so I guess maybe, although truthfully, I think I've actually persuaded more people from the right than I have from the left, which I never would have guessed, but that's just kind of how it's worked out. But, you know, I feel like there's a lot of things, if you like, it was always like just my instincts to, if you're going to approach somebody either from the left or the right and you're a libertarian, it's easy to start with the areas, like the best of them, and try to pull it to us. Yeah, but it's also like, you know, we're in this weird position. Scott Horton said this before, and I thought it was so like perfectly said, where he was like, you know, the truth about libertarians is that we're better liberals than the liberals, and we're better conservatives than the conservatives. Like on the issues that they're the best on, we're better than them. Like, oh, the liberals say that they care about like civil liberties and, you know, locking people up for nonviolent crimes and being anti-war, and we're better on those issues, you know. And then conservatives claim they want to conserve the Bill of Rights, and they believe in free market capitalism, and we're better than that. So we have an obvious strategy of how to talk to any of them. And you know, so I just try to establish that it's like, I'm not trying to get you to abandon your identity. I'm telling you that your identity should lead you to us. And so, okay, you're already a libertarian. So now, of course, that's not completely true, but if we can, if you can reach a few of them, then that's something.
Dave, how did you become a libertarian growing up in New York? What was your awakening?
I was a Ron Paul child. I was just a average, you know, kind of ignorant left-wing person. You know, I wasn't super political, and I saw Ron Paul in the debate against Giuliani, and I saw that, and it just like blew my mind. I was like, who the fuck is that guy? That guy is really interesting. And then I was like, let me check him out a little bit more. And the more I checked out, the more I had to check out other people who he had mentioned. And then Google searches led me to this and that. And then I found the Mises Institute and started reading Rothbard. And I don't know, everything's been kind of a haze since then. I fell down the rabbit hole.
Bergman knows all about hazes.
So what came first? Did comedy come first or libertarianism? Or
I was already... I was in stand-up already. I started stand-up like early 2006. And then I found Ron Paul late 2007. So I was like about 2 years in stand-up. But then it also took me probably a year and a half, 2 years to really be converted to libertarianism. Like I was interested in it and exploring it, but it took me a little while to like dive in. So I was already doing comedy and working my way through the New York scene. And then libertarianism just came along, and then the two melded, and I became the great superstar that I am today.
Like, how long was it, do you think, before like libertarianism like became like a aspect of your act?
That just kind of happened. Like it was never anything I planned or like sat down and was like, well, how do I work this into my act? I just got obsessed with Austrian economics and libertarian philosophy. And I was like, just obsessed with reading about it and learning all these different things. And then eventually, just because that's what I was obsessed with, it started, you know, I started thinking of funny things about it. And, you know, that's like if some stand-up comedian, you know, just got really obsessed with like scuba diving, I'm sure they'd have a joke or two about that, you know, like, and so that's just kind of how it happened. And then it kind of started working into this area where it gave me, like, when it comes to radical anarchist, libertarian, Austrian economic comedians, it turns out I'm the only game in town. So it was like,
so strange,
dude. Is it,
like, right? So it's like,
what about Chris Cantwell, dude?
He could have. That's the that's the real beauty in Cantwell's turn, is he was my only comp and he got out of the way, so he moved, you know. But
and did you a monopoly?
See, now people understand why I'm so friendly with him. It's just like, thank you, dude.
So Cantwell might spin this and say it was a Jewish conspiracy against him to get him out of the way, right?
Wait, am I not being clear here? He's right about everything, okay? That's what I'm trying to explain to you people.
Well, that's the podcast, folks.
By the way, that was a joke before it appears on a meme somewhere in some fucking Facebook page with 12 people. That was a joke. That's how jokes work.
That's gonna be up in Conosphere tomorrow.
Oh god.
Who are some comedians, Dave, that influenced you? Who are some of your like go-tos?
Well, there's like the comedians that I loved as a kid, and those people probably influence you more than anybody. You know what I mean? Because those are like who you grow up on. Like I grew up on The Simpsons and Seinfeld and South Park and all that shit that any kid from the 90s would have grown up on. So all of those, you know, that all influences me. And I loved like Chris Rock and Dave Chappelle and you know, like all the great, you know, I loved Pryor and George Carlin. To me are the greatest ever. No one could ever top those two. But like personally, it very much Dave Attell, Patrice O'Neill, Greg Giraldo. I was lucky enough to like meet all of them and really get to like watch them live a lot and learn from them. And you know, Bill Burr, I think, is the greatest living comedian. Yeah. So all those guys.
Yeah, Jared, you could tell the story, but
well,
I mean, got a chance. Yeah, go ahead, Jared.
Yeah, well, I mean, me and Alex saw Dave Attell, like I guess it was like last year, actually.
Yeah, it was Magooby's.
Yeah, Magooby's Joke House in Timonium, Maryland.
A storage unit.
We got to briefly meet him and take an awkward picture with him. So.
Yeah, everything with Dave Attell is awkward.
Yeah. He's just sitting there like this, like. But he was cool. It was fucking hilarious, man. I was dying laughing the whole fucking time.
Yeah, he's incredible.
Yeah.
Did you ever meet Joey Diaz? You good friends with him?
Yeah. I did a show with Joey Diaz at the Comedy Store in LA last year, and like I think I've met him like a couple different times, but yeah, love that dude.
Yeah, so genuine. I met him a couple times when he came through Baltimore twice, and yeah, he's like, yeah, come here, motherfucker, let's get a picture. You know, he's just like, just so genuine. He's just like, hey, you want a picture? Come on.
Have you seen those Instagram ads he's been doing where he's like promoting like awareness of like ball cancer?
No, I haven't seen that.
Dude, it's so fucking funny, man. It's so funny. You gotta look it up. I can't do it justice. Oh man.
So do you think at this point your I guess your activism has kind of like, do you think you're putting more effort towards that than you are your comedy? I mean, 'cause you're like kind of doing these two things.
No, it's like they're like co-equal parts of my career. Like I don't really even I wouldn't call it activism. I mean, I guess you could label it that, but what I love to do is I love stand-up comedy and I love ranting about politics and philosophy and shit like that. And so I just kind of built a career where I do those two things. But stand-up comedy is always like that's my first love. And I just there's nothing I enjoy more than it. I was really excited and I was really happy about how my hour was coming. You know, I'm trying to put out a new hour special, and I was going out on the road and like was really happy about how it was going. And you know, I don't know if you've heard, but there's been a bit of a shutdown nationwide. But so that's kind of, you know, now I got to refigure all that out. But no, I mean, I love both, and I don't really feel like one is more important than the other or anything like that. It's just it's the two parts of my career.
Yeah, my wife was actually just telling me earlier. She read that concerts aren't going to start back up till the fall of 2021.
Yeah, I mean, who the hell knows, man? But that's like that might be concerts on like a huge level, like, you know, like 10,000 seaters or something like that. I don't know when. Like, you know, I'm doing rooms of like 300 people or something like that. So maybe that'll start a little sooner, but I don't know. I really don't know how this whole thing's gonna shake out, and will people be comfortable coming out and being in an enclosed environment with other people right next to them? You know, we're all gonna have to see the psychological effect that this has on the country. It'll be interesting to find out.
Do you see yourself staying in New York City?
You know, I think even before this, I ultimately saw myself getting out of New York City. Like I want to raise my daughter in like a house with a yard, and you know, I didn't really want to raise my daughter in New York City anyway. So this might speed that up a little bit, but ultimately I see myself going somewhere not too far from New York City, but probably buying a house outside the city.
Cool. Kind of circling back to what we were talking about with like trying to reach the left. The news just came out that Bernie has endorsed Biden, and this has rightfully pissed off a lot of his supporters. I have a good friend who was basically just like, I'm done with Bernie, fuck Bernie. But I'm wondering if, do you think do you think this is an opening for us to reach out to those kind of sort of disenfranchised, disillusioned Bernie bros?
Yeah, sure. I absolutely. And I think that libertarians should do their best to not use this moment to like dunk on the Bernie bros, but rather, dunk on Bernie because look, you got to think that there's a real opening where you can look the true principled progressives, or leftists, and say, look, man, the you just can't support anymore. I mean, look at what they did to Bernie Sanders. It's disgusting. Look at what they did to Tulsi Gabbard. That's really disgusting. Yeah. Now, both of them ended up selling out in the end and endorsing Joe Biden. But if you leave that aside and just focus on their supporters, I mean, you can say, look, man, the war candidate that they had was somebody who served in these wars that Hillary Clinton lied America into. And then Hillary Clinton's going to turn around and call her a Russian asset because she dares to question whether the war that Hillary Clinton even apologized for voting for, whether we should fight any more of them. And you're going to go, listen, you can just say, look, we may disagree on a lot of issues, but you need to send a message to the Democratic Party that you will not support them anymore. And hey, if you come over here and support libertarians, we may not agree on everything, but it'll be a strong message. You can even say that, look, we're not going to win anyway, but it'll send a strong message to the Democrats that war and civil liberties and the war on drugs and all of these things, these are non-negotiables. You have to be good on these issues, and we're willing to go over here with these guys. There's an opening there to pitch something to them, but obviously for a lot of Bernie supporters, they're going to have this kind of moment where, look, what the Bernie's whole message, it just doesn't make sense. The idea that you would say the establishment is so bad that we need a revolution. That's what Bernie Sanders said. Establishment is so bad that we need a political revolution. But the establishment isn't so bad that I can ever criticize the candidates or that I won't endorse their candidates. Now, you tell me how that makes sense. You tell me how you can say we need a